Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. I'm super excited for this video. I've spent a lot of time in horticulture growing shrubs and some small trees at my nursery, but my background is mostly in, I'll prune any shrub, and fearlessly prune any shrub. But I wanted to get some video content on pruning some trees, and specifically in this video, it's going to be Japanese maples, which everybody loves. And I've brought back a star, Lynn Swanson over here, and her husband. Go introduce yourself, because the audience hasn't met you yet.
I'm Jim Swanson.
Jim Swanson.
And I just take orders from Lynn because she's the big knowledge person. I know a few things about Japanese maples.
Yes, so you have an incredible collection here in your home in Raleigh, and then you're on the board for the national...
Lynn is.
Board for the Maple Society of North America.
Okay, gotcha.
And then together we prune the maples at the Ralston Arboretum.
Okay, and so the Ralston Arboretum, the actual emblem for the Ralston Arboretum is a Japanese maple leaf. And JC's vision was that every angle at the Ralston, you'd be able to see a Japanese maple. So there's no place at the Ralston where you can't see one in a line of sight somewhere. So there's a lot of Japanese maples at the Ralston that they're in charge of pruning. So we're going to learn a few tools here that they use for this, and then we're going to jump right in and prune a few maples. They're going to demonstrate some Japanese maple pruning. So you want to jump in?
Yes,
Jim?
I'm going to come over here.
Okay, perfect.
I've got a lineup of tools, and we're not going to talk about all of them. You can kind of view them. Two that we use a lot in our yard. This is a long, an extended pole. It can get small branches. It has little anvils that can hold the branch and direct it where you wanted to drop it.
Oh, wow.
And then these loppers are quite extraordinary. You get a lot of leverage and a lot of reach with these. And of course, there's traditional loppers. I carry around a smaller one, and then this is typical lopper that you've seen. And then saws. This is a nice saw. It's made in California, and it's with a handle you can reach quite a ways. And then a monster saw here. We don't use it much on our Japanese maples here, but we've used it at the Arboretum because they have this tool. And we've also used a pole thing that at the Arboretum we have one of those. And of course these little things you can't get by without these. Lynn's holding a couple of different kinds.
Felco is well known, and
this is a Japanese one, although there's Chinese knockoffs that look exactly like it, and they're about a third of the price. Doesn't mean that, I don't know what that means. So, and then I love these Japanese saws. Silky made this one, and this is a great folding one that actually you can reach quite a ways with this thing. So I carry my little holster and toolkit, and we can do a lot of damage.
All right, so we're going to go through some of the principles and the reasons why we would do that. We're going to start with a fairly extreme branch, taking off a fairly extreme branch. So this particular Japanese maple, and I think folks can maybe see up here, it has 2 leaders from about, I'm 6 feet. So just over 6 feet here, this thing takes off with 2 leaders. It's got another 6 or 7 feet up there. Mm-hmm. Why do you want to get that down to 1 leader?
Well, we try to visit our maples every year, and if we'd seen this at a younger age, we would have done it then, and probably would have been better off to do it then. But this obviously is a tree that wants to go up, and it wants to go tall.
Right.
And it's really competing for the same airspace there.
Right.
We don't want that to continue. We think it'll develop a better, prettier crown if there's one definite leader. So our choice would be to shorten this one or just take it off. And there's a clear choice right here at this crotch angle of favoring one. And so what we're going to do is stand back, and it looks like this one is more in line with the trunk.
With the trunk. Gotcha.
So we want the straightest one.
Gotcha.
So we're going to choose that one and get rid of the other.
Okay, so the timing here, we're February 28th today, right? So
yes.
Is this the best time of year?
For a major cut like this, it is, while it's dormant, before it's trying to put out leaves or drop its leaves or do other things. You can prune other times of year, but for major cuts, you really want to do them in the winter.
Okay, gotcha. So if you have and I've said this many times, if you got a crazy limb on something, go cut it. you know, or a limb that's potentially
Yes.
going to damage the plant in some way.
Yes.
You're helping it from whatever. But this kind of cut we want to do when it's dormant. And again, you also said this is addressing these things very early on matter. So if you buy a Japanese maple in a 1 or 2 gallon container, because they can be expensive if you're buying them in larger containers, addressing them when they're smaller is better. Because this is going to be a fairly significant cut that's coming off of here. And then one other thing is, like, there are a lot of different types of Japanese maples. So this is a very upright grower.
And whenever you start pruning, that's the first thing you need to know. What is the shape of this tree?
Right.
Is it upright? Does it look like it'll have multiple stems going up with a crown? Is it upright and vase shaped? Is it upright with a canopy? Or is it a weeper? And walking up to the tree knowing what it is natural inclination is the best way to start pruning.
We just want to get that started so it does not
Split.
split.
Yeah.
And you always want to make the smallest cut you can, so you don't want to cut down into the main bark of the tree. So you want to, that best angle you can get
Watch
there.
out for you.
I know.
We don't want to hit the camera, woman.
Okay.
So this is a Acer pseudosubaldianum variety Taka cements. It's a Korean maple,
Right.
but close in nature to a Japanese maple.
Right. There's a lot of that, and there's a lot of hybridizing between different types of maples that we all classify as Japanese maples. So he initially made a back cut on there, and I've shown this 3-cut method on the channel before about making a back cut. So when that limb dropped off, and we had to stop filming there for a second because the limb was about to drop on where Steph was sitting here filming. So he made a back cut here, and then cut from the top, and that way the thing drops off without, because what will happen is on a limb that's that heavy, if you don't make that back cut, when this limb drops, it could peel the bark right down the side. So that's the reason you're making that back cut. If it's a large limb, that back cut is super, super important, because otherwise, again, it could do significant damage. This looked like this is a fairly tough, this seems like tough love, right?
It does. It is tough love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but trees are tough, like you
Yes.
just said over there. Trees are very tough, and now you will have potentially prevented ice.
Yes.
We're in an ice area here in Raleigh. We've had two snows this year. More typical is for us to get
an ice storm.
Ice,
Yeah.
and so we kind of have to guard against that with trees, and prune them appropriately.
Yeah. And people are afraid to cut their Japanese maples, and there's good reason for that. If you take it off, it won't come back.
Yeah, right.
But they do respond well to pruning.
Yeah.
They really do.
Oh, so we use Japanese maples a lot of times as understory trees, but that can make them vulnerable to damage from the larger trees. So you had a limb drop on this one, this Acer palatum. What variety is this?
Sukasa silhouette.
It's a mouthful. Okay. And it broke a limb off, peeled it back here, and then you gave it an opportunity to make a decision on if it could figure out a way to rebalance the tree.
Yes.
And now it's just become obvious that this is a danger to the tree.
Yes.
Right. So you're going to take this off and leave that leader.
Yes. This one is supposed to be narrow, so we might have liked this being branched out lower down, but yeah, that's an invitation to bacteria.
Okay.
We could probably take it there and it might be okay, but why not just give it a road to good health and take a clean cut?
And that would it'd just be kind of a kludgy looking branch.
Yes.
Right. So you're just going to take this one down to here.
Yes.
This one's small enough that we don't need the saw.
Yes.
One thing I'll say back on that saw is all of these pruning saws are pull saws, and you may have noticed that I meant to say that while he was pruning that over there. They don't cut on the push, they cut on the pull. And as long as you're not fighting it, they're really easy.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just let it pull real easy, and it went right through it.
Yes.
Okay. But
Japanese woodworking tools do the same thing.
So clean, sharp tools, clean cuts.
Ready?
Yes. Right.
And that might be a little more of a stump than I would prefer, but it was as close as I could get my loppers in there.
Without doing any additional damage.
And you know, on maple, sometimes it's hard to tell where the branch color is, but
Right.
you get it as close as you can. That's where the cells of the tree want to help
Yeah,
heal
and you
it.
see the branch collar. Yeah, again, yeah, a lot of trees will tell, you know, you can really see where the branch collar is.
Yeah.
This one is much, much lower, and you wouldn't want to cut all the way down to there.
Yeah.
You know, and it used to be in pruning, they use pruning, the tar type stuff. Nobody uses that anymore. It's not recommended at all. I remember
Yeah.
my father
Yeah,
putting
they all
that on
did.
because that's what people did. But
Yeah.
I don't even know if you can buy it anymore.
We sold it at the garden center when I was a kid, but this is more about keeping your tools in good shape and making angled cuts and making sure it sheds water, and the thing's able to heal itself. We're pruning at the right time of year. Yeah. And a lot of trees, there are, you know, Japanese maples are not an example of that, but there are trees we would not prune this time of year. There are maples, there are trees that bleed this time of year, like river birches and that kind of thing. And so they have a different time of year to be pruning them, but this is, we're doing it at the appropriate time with a sharp tool. Another reason on the pruning timing might be that you can't see inside of it, right?
Correct.
Yeah. That's because this time of year, even now though, some of these maples tend to hold their leaves through the winter. Is, you know, how do you get in here and really see this?
Yeah, well, especially with these weepers, it just seems to be the habit, and a lot of people don't like this about these. And this tree always needs lots of cleaning up. Not heavy pruning, but just get a pair of gloves and just strip these off. You know, just do that.
Yeah.
That's first step. And the next step is that you find a lot of dead small branches, maybe even large, and snap them off, because that'll give you a clear that stuff out. Then you can make decisions of what you want to take out.
Right.
And this tree has a lot of spiky things, and it takes a while to clean it up. It's a wonderful tree, though.
Yeah. But on the upright ones, we can definitely see the structure. It's easy to figure out what to prune. It's winter time. We can see right in them. But this thing, even now, is hard to see. So it's hard to identify where the crossing branches are until you get in here and clean it up some.
So we're not going to touch it here for the video, but we're going to go to another weeper that's
Has no leaves.
It has no leaves, and it's one that we're working on developing its shape.
So this is a weeper. If a lot of people have one or two Japanese maples, it's commonly what we would call a weeper, which means it gets wider than tall. And so the typical horticultural rules apply. First, you want to look for anything damaged or dead. Anything touching, you're going to have to make a decision. And then after that, it gets a little more fun, a little more choice. But you can see this has a nice round form, but there's some things just going way up or going across center. This branch here, it's competing with this branch. It really has nowhere to go. I'm going to take it right there. So when I'm looking for this kind of tree, each quadrant flows, and I want it to flow out. I don't want it to flow on top of itself unless I'm choosing a main stem that I want to curve and be a permanent feature. Otherwise, I'm going to take things off that are like headed in just really the wrong direction, or some like this. This is a great example. I have a branch coming here. I have a branch coming here. This one forks. I don't really want this one going over to compete with its neighbor, so I'm going to let it flow this way. By the same token, this one's getting in the way. So I just want it to have the best version of itself. We prune to make things look kind of natural. It's not the highly artistic pruning that you will see some people do with Japanese maples. It's just helping the tree look like the best version of itself. So, and some things you might not be clear where they're headed, and you can leave it for a year. You can always come back the following year. But we just want it to get a little more organized here. Again, this one's coming up to compete. This one is touching. See, there'd be nothing wrong with this, but they are starting to get in the same airspace. So I have a choice. Do I want one at this layer, or do I want this guy coming across? I'm going to favor this one, but you could have gone either way on that decision. And when it leaves out, you will never know that it had all these little branches taken off. It will get light into the center of the tree, which is a good thing. And it will put out some more branches as well. Back here, you'll often have really odd little things come out of the main trunk. I'm just going through making, oh, and the other thing you can do is head back a branch. Let me show you. If you come here, anywhere you cut along this, you're going to encourage new branches to come out. And you can even look at what are the direction of those buds. This one's going to have an up and down. This is going to have a side to side. So you can even make a choice where you cut it if you want to head back some branches and bring the length in a little bit and help it to get a little shrubbier. You can head back. And some of these are getting so close to the ground that I want to do that anyway. I don't want it dragging on the ground. And some of these, if they're crossing airspace, I might just head it back for this year and give it some more branches to come next year, and then I might take one of them off. This one, another thing you can do is prune to the young branch. This is headed to the ground. It's on this main branch that has been cut, but you have a nice branch developing here going in the direction I want it to flow. So in this case, I'm going to prune to the younger branch, and I'm going to let this nice fresh one take over. There's a real wild one. This one's trying to go around the bend, so and again, see this teeny tiny one? This is going the direction I want it. You kind of have to use your mind's eye of where things are headed. When I have a weeper, remember the habit is out and down. So I don't want anything going way up like that. This is a real wild one, and you'll have this. I want to live on the other side of the tree.
Mentioned about changing directions of branches.
Yes, occasionally you do want, one of the beauties of a weeper as it gets older is that you have them coming up and it builds on itself. And some of the beauty of that is the way branches do change. So like this one starts over here and it comes this direction. If that was a young branch crossing, it might be something I'd correct, but occasionally you want to allow some of the twists and turns of a Japanese maple. Generally, for most trees, you don't want them crossing center. If you keep in mind the center of your tree, you don't want crossing too wildly, but allowing some twist and turn is part of the beauty of a maple.
It may have been hard to keep up with a lot of that. It's wearing this understory and it's shadowy in here, so it may, and the leaf background is probably hard to see. But it hardly looks like you made any cuts on it really, other than the fact that I can now see that everything has a purpose. You know, that's what you did. You reorganized it in a way without really, this could be intimidating, right?
It could. People are afraid to cut these precious things, but especially on these finer branches, you're not going to get in much trouble. It will grow more.
Yeah, and I've said frequently on the channel, you're in charge. You know, when we're pruning things, you know, like you did here, you can look at how these buds are arranged on these stems, and when you're cutting back to one of those, you can see the direction that next branch is going to take.
Yes.
And select that's the direction I want this thing to go, and if it doesn't do it this year for me, I'll do it again next year.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yes. Until I make one go this way. So you really are in charge, and it's not, it's hard to make a mistake unless you, again, are using poor tools and
Yes, sharp, clean tools.
Yeah. And it'll recover from it. We talked about kind of rescue pruning a little bit and making sure things aren't crossing dead or diseased things, old stems. But then there's the art of Japanese maples, right? Which is, and that can be in the eye of the beholder. So what we're about to do may not be for everyone. But you want to take this tree and get these lower limbs off of it, and then maybe in the future do a little bit of top pruning so you can create kind of a shrubby top to this,
Yes.
to and have a single trunk going up.
Yes.
So this is the artistic form of Japanese maple pruning.
Yes.
So tell us what you're going to do here.
Okay, we're going to go dramatic on this tree.
Okay.
This is Acer palmatum cripsii. It's never going to be a huge tree, and it's really fine the way it is.
Yeah.
But we were looking at that, and I hope your viewers in their mind's eye can imagine the tree as it is versus if we took off all the smaller lower branches. Now we have a long clear trunk with a smaller top canopy.
Yeah.
If it was my only tree, would I do it? No. Since we have lots of them, we're gonna create this sassy little top tree.
Okay. But you were talking about the other thing here about standing back. You can pull these
Yes.
limbs down, and the other person can stand back.
Yes, and vision.
this, and just
like, do
imagine.
we want to do that?
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
One person stands back and looks, and then the
Yes.
other person stands back and looks, and
Yes.
then you think it through. Would there be? So here's the question. This tree is now this height. So I know in the bonsai world of pruning, they will leave branches for several years that they know they're eventually going to take off because
Yes.
it helps the plant build energy.
Yes.
So there's some argument, but then that gets to a point where it's like really kind of,
Yes.
I would probably get it while it's easy to take.
Yes, but you bring up a great point. We have a butterfly, and that's a little more tender plant.
yeah.
And so we like things that are going to be treated to have somewhat of a clear trunk. But that one, we left a lower branch for quite a while so
Right.
it could make plenty of food and get strong.
Right.
And then we did take that branch off, and it's thriving.
Okay, so there's an argument for leaving
yeah,
them for a
we even
while.
Viewed from the house, discussed this from the house.
We can
looking
see
to
this tree,
Yeah.
Right.
and we could pick out the future tree and think, yeah,
Right.
let's go for it.
And there's another thing with ornamental tree look, because this is, we started with a very large growing Korean but Japanese maple.
Yes.
And then we did a weeping Japanese maple. This one's kind of a middle of the road ornamental tree. And my thought on a lot of these is when they're branched really low, they actually take away some of the rest of your garden. You know what I mean?
Yes.
If this thing gets this wide and
Yes.
it's limbed this low,
Yes.
then I can't see anything back
Past
there.
it. Yes.
So yeah, this is another reason you would
Yes,
lift it. Right.
and its neighbors. We have rising sun right behind you that is going to be a big tree, and we're going to let it be a big tree.
Right.
And then this one is in a much smaller setting with a path right next to it. We don't want this to get in the path.
Gotcha. Okay, well, here we go.
Okay, here we go.
All right.
Bring the.
Let's start with the.
And then this happens, getting the one with the tag on it.
Yeah. You want to try to take the tag out?
Well, no, just go ahead and, let me get it out of your way. Okay.
You have tags on all of them. When you have 250,
We do.
you better keep up.
Yes.
Here you go. You want to hold
Thank you.
that? Yes.
I'll get around. Yeah, I'll go further in, I think. There you go.
All right. That is a pretty radical change,
That is
huh?
a pretty radical change.
Right.
Put 'em back.
Would you potentially ever stake something like this, or just let it be? Because it has a slight lean back that direction. To me, it's character. I don't.
I think so, and it seems pretty hardened the way it is. So
Right.
what we might do in future pruning, it's also really heavy on this side.
Right.
So we might, it's had enough done to it today,
yeah, right.
but
Yeah.
we might start to work on this, on the sides at the top.
Okay.
And that, we will probably keep this one now small, but it's not trying to be a 25-foot tree.
Right.
When you want to keep a tree down to 6 feet, if you keep one that its nature is to be an 8-foot tree,
Yeah.
you're great. But
Yeah. So how many named I mean, there are literally hundreds and hundreds and maybe thousands of named cultivars. So if you're looking for a Japanese maple for a space, finding one that kind of fits the space is super important. Just not going and buying the random Japanese maple off the, that may get 25 feet tall, or, Bloodgood's an example of that. It's a tree. I mean, it actually can become quite a large tree. It's the most common Japanese maple still on the market. It always has been. It's a vigorous grower and all those kinds of things, but
it's beautiful. It get big.
Yeah, it's going to be a big tree, so it needs to be placed appropriately.
Yes.
All right, so what I want to point out here is that the type of pruning that you did on the newer, younger weeping Japanese maple, look at the form of this one. And when I see most of these, they're crowded, crossing branches everywhere. But if you start early and you focused all of these branches coming outward and you focused them where you wanted them, this thing is just so interesting, and it just is interesting in the winter.
I love it in the winter.
Yeah, as it's going to be in the spring, and you've allowed these layered pieces to come up, and you see that training this, I mean, I imagine you got started on this one.
We did. This one we've had a long time and started training it early.
Yeah. And I mean, all of these weeping Japanese maples are interesting and have, with or without, but when you really get in here and and think about what the shape of it's going to be in the future, you can really turn it into something where it's not hurting itself and it's super, super interesting.
And it's finding
layered.
its correct shape, and you kind of do use your mind's eye. What airspace is this branch going to take?
Right. Yeah. As it's coming out. So there's an event for the Maple Society coming up in Raleigh.
Yes, the Maple Society of North America is a great organization for maple lovers, and we usually have one fall annual meeting, but we've developed regional groups, and so the Southeast Regional Group is going to be here in April 11th through 13th. So
okay, gotcha.
People could go on the Maple Society website and find out all about that.
They're touring your garden and Jay York, who's been on our channel.
Yes.
We've did a video at Jay York. So are you going to the Ralston?
Jim's going to lead a tour of the maples in Ralston.
Okay,
go
gotcha.
to Cheryl Kern's home garden.
Okay, gotcha.
Go out to a couple of nurseries. So it'll be a fun weekend.
So how many do you have in your Raleigh garden here?
We have 255-ish maples, and at least 200 of those are the species that are considered Japanese. Some of the others are other species maples.
Gotcha, or hybrids.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
So again, about selecting a maple for the space that it's going in, because you can have weeping ones, you can have very dwarfish upright ones, and then upright ones that are just flat out trees. I mean, they can get up into the canopy with the rest of the trees. Yeah. So then once you know that, then you can kind of see either through photography or other places what that tree is kind of supposed to look like a little bit, and then come in and address.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you look at your trees from all angles, and when we looked at this one, it's taking a vase shape at the top, which is lovely, but this one branch is changing that look. So you have a choice. You could just start to prune out some of these that are really heading out, or you could follow it back to the main branch, which is what we're going to do here. But sometimes if you hesitate, you can go, well, I'll take these this year, and then I'll think about it next year about whether to do more.
Or do a little bit at a time.
Yes, and we could do that right now.
And you keep standing back and coming back and looking.
And keep looking, these might be, is that enough? You could do that much and go, is that enough? And then decide yes, or come in as we're going to do and take it to there.
Right, and you're basically just you want to be able to walk around this one, keep it in a vase shape and be able to walk around it. Okay, I got you.
So I'm coming right in here and do one quick clean cut. There you go.
There you go. And what looked cruel has put the thing back in kind of a vase shape. And there may be something else over here at some point because it's coming out. When you're talking about a vase shape, we want most of the branches to be going, not this, but somewhere here, and then getting off the horizontal pieces that kind of fight against that.
Yes.
Yeah. Another thing we may be pruning for is stem color. So a lot of these maples are, including my favorite Bihu, which you have one out by the road.
Yes.
Are grown for stem color.
Yes.
Which hopefully should be showing up in this video, but it's so shadowy out here. So tell us about that.
So this is a tree called redwood. It's a small coral bark, meaning in the winter, the younger stems go bright red.
Right.
So we've shown you that we allow it to grow in late fall because we want to see all that beautiful red color.
Right.
This tree we half pruned before the video started so that you could see where we will be taking off those young stems because we want to keep this tree in this small streamside garden on the petite side.
Right, but you're just sometime during the season you're just allowing these stems to extend. Then you can enjoy them through the winter,
Yes.
cut them back again, and the best colors in that juvenile growth.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, from the end of the season. So
Yes.
he's going to demonstrate the tool of. These are I got to get one of these. This thing holds the limb, cuts it, and then
brings
you
it
can
down.
and then brings it down. You see that?
And this is
And it's
great
extendable.
tool.
And so these are great for people bringing
yes.
in for
Flower
using-
arrangements.
For flower arrangements.
Yes, bright red.
Yeah, it's probably a good one for that. Okay, so and then he's going to take the rest of them down. So another thing people love, other than stem color and all the great, the structure of Japanese maples, is obviously when they leaf out in the spring.
They are beautiful. It's almost like flowers. Some of them are so pretty.
Right.
And they come out sometimes a different color than they're going to be for the summer months.
Right.
So the fresh foliage is just the best.
So we're going to come back up here in April, which is your favorite time of the year.
Yes.
For them. Would you pick spring leaf out over fall color?
I would, especially in the southeast.
That's what I was saying, because we don't necessarily get the fall color.
Yes.
Right.
And they're a little stressed sometimes from our summer.
Right. Okay. So
So-
we're going to come back in April, and we're going to go through some of your favorites
Okay.
when they're leafing out. So thank you so much,
You're
guys,
welcome.
Lynn and Jim. Thank you so much for being in the video, and thanks for watching, guys.